I'm a ghost whisperer, and I've always made a living by summoning spirits and helping them find peace. But someone reported me for fraud using superstitions, and I got a year and a half in prison. After getting out, I was bitter and became a private investigator, specifically to mess with the cop who arrested me. Whenever there was a murder, I'd summon the victim's spirit to find out who the killer was. Then I'd anonymously mail the killer's photo to him, making sure he only received it after he'd solved the case, just to provoke and humiliate him. However, for the current teen genius murder case that's got the whole country talking, I finally managed to summon the victim, but she just yelled at me, exasperated, if I knew who poisoned me, would I have gotten poisoned in the first place? I'd heard geniuses could be temperamental, but I didn't expect this. Right now, the spirit of the teen genius, Helen, is floating in front of me. The way she's sitting cross-legged, with that condescending look, makes me feel like she's my great-grandma my knees keep wanting to buckle. 3 days ago, Helen, who was always in the spotlight, suddenly died in her school dorm, instantly grabbing national attention. After all, this genius had taught herself the entire high school curriculum back in elementary school. At 12, she got into a top university like Harvard or Stanford with a score of, like, 1580, way ahead of everyone else. Before she was 15, she'd pretty much won every award in all the math and science Olympiads. Now, just barely an adult, she'd finished her master's and PhD combined program and was supposedly already putting together her own research team to lead a project. No one expected her to die so young and without warning. It's definitely a huge loss for academia, no, not just academia, but for society as a whole. The media outlets chasing this story were relentless, and despite strict police confidentiality, Helen's death report still leaked online. If she had died in an accident, people would have just sighed and said, "The good die young." But the death report clearly stated death by poisoning, which means it was premeditated murder. Who could stand for that? So, that day, besides the explosive online outrage, people also spontaneously organized protests outside the police station, demanding the police solve the case quickly, find the killer, punish them severely, and avenge the deceased. However, 72 hours after it happened, the police had meticulously investigated Helen's social circle and hadn't even found a suspect. Seeing Officer Dave Miller pacing around like an ant on a hot pan, I figured I could use this case to completely crush him. Who knew the killer could be so smart that even the victim didn't know who did it? I carefully asked, "So, can you tell me what exactly happened on the day of the incident?" In my 20 years of ghost whispering, I've never been this humble. Because I was practically begging her, "Maybe I can help you find the killer." Helen thought for a moment and asked curiously, "Are you a cop?" I shook my head, "Nope." "Then why are you so invested?" With an expression of righteous indignation, I said, "The fall of a genius is a loss to the world. I believe no one on earth would want a genius like you to die in vain." "Oh, please." She scoffed at my performance. "If that were true, would I be dead?" I said angrily, "So, this killer is truly despicable." She was about to say something else, but I immediately interrupted her and continued to persuade, "Even if you were just an ordinary person, should you die without knowing why? Aren't you curious who wanted to murder you? Don't you want to know why they harmed you? And how they did it? Besides, a once-in-a-lifetime talent like you must have grand plans and strategies in mind that ordinary folks like me can't comprehend. To die just like that, don't you have regrets?" I was about to keep going, but she was already impatient. All right, shut up." She ordered me, "Quick, get a pen and paper to take notes. I'll talk." A genius is a genius, even in death she didn't need much convincing. Who knew? Before she even started talking, I heard police sirens. Dave was always fast, but no matter how fast, he'd always be a step behind me. Turns out, before I could even think about running, Helen instinctively tried to bolt. But how could she know that while legendary ghosts might have their own consciousness, they definitely can't move on their own? Otherwise, how could I summon them whenever I wanted? As I was putting her into my spirit trapping bottle, my special tool, I asked, "You're not a criminal, why are you running from the cops?" She wasn't scared of the unfamiliar environment at all. In fact, she seemed calmer once inside, sighing, "You think everyone's like you, not afraid of ghosts?" I knew Dave was constantly trying to find the person who anonymously sent him photos of killers. After all, every time he painstakingly found the real killer, a letter would arrive for him. Inside the letter would be a photo of the real killer, and the postmark could be from days or even weeks earlier. If it happened only once, he might think it was a coincidence. But in the 2 years since I got out of prison, he'd handled 8 murder cases, and it happened every single time. If he were a little less mentally tough, he would have cracked long ago. This time, he was able to sniff me out. It was purely because Helen was an exceptionally special girl, completely devoted to her studies and research, with no hobbies or entertainment. And to summon a spirit, I need an item the deceased was familiar with and cared about. But I didn't understand any of the things she researched. Desperate, I had to go to the police station's evidence department and steal her bra. That's like a mouse stealing from a cat's house. If Dave still couldn't catch me after that, he had no business being a cop. From the sound of it, I figured they were coming to arrest me directly. Why else would so many cops show up? Instantly, the whole street was in an uproar. I packed my things and jumped out the window, then deliberately led Dave into a dead-end alley. I'd cased this place before. It was an area slated for demolition, long abandoned. For safety, it was all fenced off with green corrugated iron. There was no way out. Most importantly, the passageways inside were narrow and winding. At night, it was eerie and terrifying, like a scene straight out of a low-budget horror movie. Except for a weirdo like Dave, I figured no one would dare follow me in. "Tom, you're suspected of obstructing official business and stealing evidence. The police are now formally arresting you. If you dare resist again, I'll shoot." If he hadn't called me by my name, I wouldn't have been angry, but when he did, I immediately felt the urge to fight him to the death. I stopped running and ambushed him, kicking his gun away, and then we started wrestling. "Crime, crime, crime. You cops, besides pinning this crime or that crime on people, what else can you do? I helped you solve so many cases, what crime did I commit?" In hand-to-hand combat, I was definitely no match for him, but I was good at mind games. I deliberately provoked him. "You went to all this trouble to catch me this time, it's just because you can't find any clues, so you want to get a break from me, right? If you beg me nicely, I might cooperate. But if you try to force me like this, I wouldn't tell you even if I knew who the killer was." At first, Dave was definitely affected. But he was, after all, someone who had received special training and quickly regained his composure. He immediately found a loophole and asked, "So, you admit you sent the photos? And you stole Helen's bra? I have my body cam on, every word you say is evidence." He punched me hard and ordered, "Stop it, or resisting arrest and assaulting an officer will add to your charges." I didn't hold back either, kicking him right in the solar plexus, then pinning him to the ground, saying, "I've already done time, what do I care about more charges? Dave, are you even human? I got on my knees for you, I begged you, and you still dragged me back. Would the world end if I wasn't in prison? Did you get a promotion or a raise for bringing me back?" Thinking about it still brings tears to my eyes. 4 years ago, I took a job from a rich businessman. He offered $50,000 for me to summon his father's spirit. Because his father died too suddenly and didn't leave a will. According to inheritance law, he had to split the assets with his stepmother and half-siblings. He wasn't happy about it and insisted on summoning the old man to get clarity. Turns out, the old man said he did leave a will, and all his property was to be inherited by his current wife and her children. He didn't leave a dime for his son. I just told the truth after all, I had to respect the deceased's wishes. But then this guy went nuts. First, he paid me the agreed-upon $50,000, then he turned around and reported me for scamming him out of $50,000 using superstition. If that charge stuck, I'd be looking at 10 years minimum. I had a special reason to go abroad at the time. I had literally walked to the border when he caught me. I explained, I really didn't scam him. That money was what we agreed on. But because there was no contract, and because I had tried to leave the country, my explanation sounded pretty weak. I had no choice but to tell him everything. I'm a spirit medium. I make a living by summoning spirits and helping them move on. But because we're born with this ability, our lifespans are also very short. Normally, we die suddenly around age 30. But over the years, I've found a way to break the curse. It turns out, people like us face a major trial in our 25th year. As long as I can get through this trial, I can live to a ripe old age. I wasn't supposed to reveal too many details, but seeing the doubt all over his face, I risked divine punishment and told him, this trial requires a magical artifact. I now know the artifact is in Country L. The reason I charged so much this time was to go find this artifact. Everything I'm saying is true, please believe me. Once I successfully pass the trial, I'll come back and turn myself in, okay? I was really bawling my eyes out then, but he was like a robot, completely unmoved. He just brought me back, took me to court, sent me to prison. He handled the whole thing himself, no hesitation. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, and the harder I fought. Unfortunately, I might have a way with ghosts, but with people, I'm just a normal guy. I really couldn't beat a cop. I don't even know when I gave him an opening, but whoosh, he turned the tables on me. I'm not human. No, seriously, do you even hear what you were saying back then? You committed the crime, the rich guy reported it, the court sentenced you, the prison locked you up. I just did what a cop is supposed to do. You wrote 108 letters cursing me while you were in prison, and after you got out, you pull this stunt, meddling in every case I handle? And for a $50,000 case, you only got a year and a half. You still have a problem with that sentence? If you have a problem, appeal it. Why are you obsessing over me? I was just doing my job. Did I dig up your ancestors' graves or something? I was the one full of resentment, but he sounded even more pissed off than me. After a few punches, I felt like I couldn't take much more, but I still answered his question, because you clearly could have let me go, but you insisted on dragging me back. Just then, Dave stopped hitting me, his face a complicated mess. Heh, so that's how your brain works? Then why don't you blame your parents? They clearly could have aborted you, but they chose to give birth to you. Why don't you blame yourself? You clearly could have been a good person, but you chose to commit a crime. I admit it. I knew long ago I couldn't beat him in a fight or an argument, otherwise, I wouldn't hate him so much. Fine. You made me miss my trial, I don't have much time left, and you're still playing the victim, huh? He pulled me up from the ground, cuffed me, and yelled, "Stop your hocus pocus. You're a young man, what kind of job can't you find to make a living? Why do you have to mess with this stuff? You just wait." For sneaking into the police station to steal the deceased's clothes. Before he could finish, my spirit bottle fell to the ground. With a slight flick of my finger, the bottle opened, and instantly a green light surged out. Helen's spirit floated right in front of Dave. "You just wait." I mimicked his tone. Sigh. If making ghosts and people meet didn't shorten my lifespan, would have shown him my ghost whispering skills last time. Now, I'm about to die anyway. I had nothing left to lose. Dave was completely stunned. He stared blankly at the spirit before him, then smirked and looked at me. "Tom, you trying to pull a fast one on me? This is just a projection. I'm a staunch materialist, old man." Before I could speak, Helen said, "Officer Miller, nice to meet you. I'm Helen. Can you help me find out who killed me?" Her words startled not only Dave but me too. After all, Helen's attitude towards him versus me was like night and day. Her voice was so sweet it was almost breaking. "I know you have countless questions, but I hope you can trust us. After all, you have nothing to lose." I felt like Dave was about to collapse. I quickly steadied him and said, "Whether you believe it or not, just listen before you decide." He didn't run away on the spot, which meant he wanted to listen. Helen quickly seized the opportunity. "I know the police may have already investigated my social circle, what I ate and drank that day, where I went, what happened. You guys must have it all figured out. I just went over it in my head too, and I don't think the poison came from something I ate or drank. I rarely eat or drink alone usually, I'm with the old professors. If they, at their age, can handle this poison, being young and strong, shouldn't have died immediately upon being poisoned." She asked curiously, "Officer Miller, did the medical examiner determine what kind of poison I ingested?" Dave paused, then shook his head, "Not yet. The deceased's internal organs were all blackened, clearly poisoned, but we still haven't identified the poison." "That potent?" "But I didn't feel anything unusual before I died. I remember that day I had a debate with the old professors. Although I won, I felt my performance wasn't good enough. After returning to the dorm, I lay on the bed replaying it in my mind. Suddenly, I felt a tightness in my chest, and it became hard to breathe. I struggled to sit up but found I had lost the ability to move. Soon after, I completely lost consciousness, until I smelled a familiar scent and heard someone calling my name. Only then did my ability to think gradually return." Dave asked, "Did you have any enemies?" "No, my social life is very simple. Ever since I got into Stanford, all my energy has been focused on my studies and research. I spend most of my time with the old professors. I'm their only student. I understand that, but it's impossible for you not to interact with people. Think if you've had any conflicts, even minor ones. If you encountered someone with a dark mind, it could very well be their reason for harming you." At this point, Dave unconsciously glanced at me. I was shocked. "You made it so I won't live past 30, and I'm the one with a dark mind for cursing you a bit?" Helen said then continued, "I've thought of a few names, write them down. I rarely pay attention to others. These are the people I have a stronger impression of. Tina, Violet, and Julia. These three were my roommates at different times before grad school. I spent more time with them. After starting grad school, I lived in a single dorm. Then there's Sam, the only one who ever wrote me a confession letter. And also Eric, a freshman who just started this year. He's an undergrad, so we haven't had much contact, but since we have the same major, he occasionally comes to me to ask about some technical terms." Dave listened intently, then asked, "Anyone else?" "That's all I can think of." "What about the old professors? Do you think they're suspects?" Helen quickly said, "Impossible. They treat me like a priceless treasure. If I died, they'd probably be sadder than my own parents. I'll verify all the information you've provided. If you remember anything else, please inform the police immediately. Also, please ensure your communication lines are open. We may need to contact you for more information at any time." This guy gets into work mode fast. Suddenly, I sensed a very unusual flow of energy. Dave and Helen stared at each other, speechless. Neither of them probably knew how difficult it was for me to perform this ritual, yet they both remained silent. A moment later, Dave apologized, "Sorry, I forgot you were the deceased. I could have held on a little longer, but for some reason, Helen flashed back into the spirit bottle. I then conveniently karate chopped Dave, knocking him out. I quickly dripped a few drops of blood into the spirit bottle. Helen regained her fierceness and yelled at me, "What are you doing? Trying to make me stink to death? What, you also forgot you're already dead?" Instantly, she fell silent. I put the lid on the bottle and explained, "My blood can help your spirit stay cohesive a little longer. Otherwise, even in the spirit bottle, you might dissipate. After all, I was a dying man. My powers weren't that strong anymore." I asked curiously, "Did you know Dave before?" "Nope. Then why did your voice suddenly get all cutesy when you saw him? She yelled at me again. Of course, you have to be a little gentle with the police. You got a problem with that? Keep it to yourself. Sigh. I've seen a lot in my time, but she's really fierce. It gives me a strange sense of awe. But I still couldn't resist teasing her. With a temper like yours, are you sure you haven't offended anyone? She yelled at me again. I'm only like this with you. Don't think I don't know you stole my bra. You should be glad I'm dead, otherwise, I'd have cracked your head open. The next time Dave saw me, it was in the interrogation room again. Looking at his stubbled chin and bloodshot eyes, I knew the kind of psychological torment he'd been through since waking up. Disbelieving, yet forced to believe. He practically rushed up to me and asked, "This isn't a dream, this is real, right? I saw Helen, I talked to her, she told me these names, right?" I was used to it. His colleagues, however, were different. They crowded around, trying to pull him back, saying, "Captain Miller, calm down. We'll handle this guy. If these cases are related to him, we'll make sure he rots in jail this time." Just then, I said something incredibly profound to the nearly hysterical Dave. I said, "If you can't refute an argument, try to accept it. Only by accepting it can you face it in the best state of mind." Come to think of it, back in the interrogation room that year, as I cried and screamed about being framed, he faced me with such composure. Walking out of the country? Who taught you that term? Without a visa, that's illegal border crossing. If you didn't commit a crime, why were you trying to sneak out? I couldn't explain. In the end, even though the person who reported me admitted they were initially willing, but later felt it wasn't worth it due to the large sum and reported me hoping to get the cash back, I still got sentenced to a year and a half. Because I did use superstition to obtain a large sum of money, and I did attempt to flee the country. All those times the photos slapped him in the face didn't make him break down, but now Dave was really having a paradigm shift. He held up his body cam, saying, "There's nothing in the recording, but where did these names come from? These roommates were from years ago when she was an undergrad. They've all graduated and gone their separate ways. If Helen herself hadn't said it, the police might not have thought of them. And the guy who confessed his feelings to her, that's even more private. Besides her, probably no one knew." He grabbed my shoulders and shook me desperately. "What the hell is going on? How did you do that?" I kind of wanted to see him break down, but right now, I felt no satisfaction. I reminded him, "Dave, you're a cop. Your mental fortitude isn't that weak, is it? The world is diverse. Things you haven't encountered don't mean they don't exist. If you really can't accept it, you can pretend to accept it. If it turns out to be wrong in the end, you'll definitely be able to find the flaws. Don't you guys solve cases by boldly speculating and carefully verifying?" I'd always provoked and scorned him. It was rare for me to console him. He actually bounced back pretty quickly. He gave the list he'd written in his notebook to his colleagues and ordered, "Bring these people in first." Then, he asked everyone else to leave. He wanted to talk to me alone. He held up the photos I had sent him and asked, "You can summon the spirits of the dead and directly ask them who the killer is, right?" I nodded. He asked, somewhat pleadingly, "Then, could you summon Helen again? I want to see her one more time." I said with difficulty, "I can, but it will consume my life force. In 2 more months, I'll be 30, and I'll die suddenly. So, since you're going to die anyway, just help me summon her one more time." As soon as he said it, we both fell silent. I couldn't believe he could say that. I asked him, "Are you even human?" He couldn't believe he'd said it either. He slapped himself hard across the face and apologized, "I'm sorry, I'm a bit shaken up. I've never encountered a case like this before. The killer's methods were so clean that the police couldn't even find a suspect. Helen was a genius. Even if she was completely focused on her studies, her IQ must have been higher than average. Who could have killed her so secretly?" He was practically pinning all his hopes on me. This case isn't just about one person's life being taken. So far, the top secret information the police have is that Helen was about to take charge of a national research project. If the research succeeded, our global civilization would advance to another level. No one dares to think, if this case is related to that, it means there's a spy internally. But the whole project is just in its infancy. Even Helen herself had very little information. How could outsiders have found out? If this case can't be solved, the country's losses will be immeasurable. I don't care if you can summon spirits or ghosts, as a citizen of our country, you have an obligation to assist the police in their investigation. At first, I was completely lost, but then it started to make a bit of sense. You want me to help you solve the case, you don't need such a long preamble, do you? If I didn't want to find the killer, why would I be doing all this? Right now, no one wanted to know who killed Helen more than I did. I gave him an okay gesture and said, I can help you, but you have to promise me one thing. What is it? I joked, haven't decided yet. Anyway, I'll tell you before I die. She was an odd person. We shared a room for a year, but we didn't interact much. She was younger than me, though, so I naturally wanted to look out for her. When it came to girl stuff, she was pretty clueless. I taught her everything. Although she didn't understand social etiquette, her learning and comprehension skills were super strong. We didn't communicate much, but we were surprisingly in sync, like the kind of understanding where I'd just take out the trash from the can, and she'd immediately put in a new liner. This was Tina's assessment of Helen. She was 6 years older than Helen. After graduating with her bachelor's, she went to work in another city. She said regretfully, after we stopped being roommates, we had very little contact. But I always heard news about her, what award she won, what paper she published, or something she said that shocked the professors. But I never thought I'd see news of her murder online one day. She had a very good memory and lived a very regular life. Not obsessive-compulsive, but very self-disciplined. For example, her books had to be arranged alphabetically, and there could only be one pen on her desk. This was Julia's assessment of her. Julia had just graduated with a master's degree and was now working at a research institute. The project she was involved in also required confidentiality, and often she couldn't contact the outside world for months. To say she was poisoned, I really don't believe it. Living with her for half a year, I never saw her eat any snacks or drinks. She ate food to fill her stomach and drank water to quench her thirst. She basically had no desire for gourmet pleasures. Dave asked, so, when you lived with her, did anything memorable happen? Julia thought for a moment and said, although we shared a dorm, we actually had very little interaction. She was often in the library or the lab, staying there all day. However, I noticed that for a while, she really liked the color purple. Purple? Why? Not sure, but based on my experience, it probably meant she was in love. In love? She couldn't have been more than 15 that year, right? Isn't that pretty normal? A 14 or 15-year-old girl experiencing her first crush. Who was it, do you know? Dave guessed, was it Sam? Not sure, it could have been a secret crush. It didn't last very long. A genius like her definitely wouldn't spend too much time on love. Later, Dave met with Sam. He looked very dejected and said, I know I wasn't good enough for her. At the time, I just had a crazy idea. I thought I was a genius too, and a genius with a genius, isn't that a perfect match? But I forgot that what I could only do at 18, she did at 12. I regret it so much. I should have persisted, but my pride wouldn't allow it. After being rejected, I deliberately avoided her. I clearly could have stayed at the same school, but I chose a different one. We all treated her like a genius, forgetting she was also a girl who needed the protection and care of a partner. Dave asked, so, after being rejected, did you resent her? I wouldn't say resentment, but definitely a bit indignant. Sam looked up and asked, Officer, what do you mean? You don't suspect that I killed her out of resentment because my advances were rejected, do you? How is that possible? You guys aren't in academia, so you might not understand, but, well, we generally only compete with people at our own level. For those who are far beyond us, we only have admiration and worship. Because Eric was still in contact with Helen, he had already been questioned after the incident, and no suspicious points were found. Dave hit a wall again, saying, "Now there's only this Violet. Because she's abroad, she hasn't come to the station to give a statement. But she only lived with Helen for half a year, and she went abroad 5 years ago. In these 5 years, she hasn't returned to the country, so she can basically be ruled out as a suspect." He looked at me, hesitant to speak, but I understood his meaning. Helen has told you everything she can think of. Meeting her again would be pointless, besides draining my life force. No, I wanted to ask you, in your experience, is there a type of poison, or something with a similar effect, that can be ingested without a person knowing, and then doesn't cause immediate death? I thought about it carefully and said, if this were ancient times, it might be possible. But modern medicine is so advanced now. Even if there were no symptoms of poisoning, students at a top university like Stanford or MIT get free physical exams twice a year. Surely they wouldn't miss something like that, right? Dave said dejectedly, the police got her annual physical exam reports right away. Nothing was wrong. Her parents and 3 generations above them also have no history of hereditary diseases. He then asked, is there anything like witchcraft, you know, that can kill someone with a curse but still make the autopsy results show poisoning? I sighed and said, so now you've had the door to an alternative world opened for you, huh? Such a vivid imagination. If such skills really existed, would your detective squad even need to exist? Then, he pretty much retreated into his own world. He seemed to be trying to convince himself that he must have overlooked a crucial piece of information, that the killer couldn't possibly have left no trace of the crime. Helen was also very interested in the results. I told her the situation truthfully, and she also asked dejectedly, what poison is so potent that doctors can't even identify it? Then this thing must be very rare, so the number of people who possess it must be very small. If we can find out what the drug is, the range of suspects will narrow considerably. Dave said the same thing, but they can't identify it. At first, they suspected benzene poisoning, then arsenic poisoning, but the symptoms for both didn't match. Now doctors suspect thallium poisoning, but there are no results yet because there haven't been previous cases of thallium poisoning, so doctors don't know the specific symptoms. Helen thought for a moment and said, whatever the poison is, it's definitely not something you can find on the market. So where would it be? I can only think of a chemical storage room. You guys at Stanford have one of those, right? Yes, but it's very strictly managed. I believe the police have already checked. If there was a problem, they wouldn't be so anxious. She pondered for a moment, then asked cautiously, can I talk to Officer Miller face to face again? I swallowed hard and asked, you two both want me to die immediately, right? My life doesn't matter, does it? She saw my brow furrowed into a knot and quickly said, no, I'm just worried your ability to express things might not accurately convey the message, understand? So my lifespan isn't important, but solving your case is? You're so special, will you become a ghost after you die too? Seeing I didn't answer, her curiosity flared up again. You're so special too, didn't you also become a ghost after you died? I cleared my throat irritably and said, however, it's not impossible for you to meet, but you have to promise me one thing. What is it? I said loudly, whatever I ask you to do, in the future, when I need it, whatever I tell you to do, you do it. She threw her hands up, a fearless expression on her face, and asked, I'm just curious, what can I even do in this state? I can't even figure out who harmed me, it's so difficult. My life, my dreams, my future, my grand strategies, my... Helen suddenly put on a cutesy, pitiful voice, I'm only 18. I should be like the morning sun, shining brightly. How did I suddenly become like a setting sun? Don't you think I'm pitiful? And if that wasn't enough, she cooed at me, Big Brother Tom. Now, who could resist that? I once again performed the ritual to let Dave and Helen meet. The location was the interrogation room. This time, the two of them were like old pros, not wasting a second, diving straight into the case. The doctors can't determine the exact poison, but it must have entered my body through me as a medium. It wasn't eaten, it wasn't drunk, so it might be something I use daily. Helen said, "My belongings are mostly in my dorm room. You guys should have checked them, right? Did you find anything? Not just your dorm room items, the four walls of your dorm, the putty on the walls, even the cobwebs in the corners, and the dorms above, below, and next to yours have all been thoroughly inspected. No toxic substances were found, not even excessive formaldehyde. And the lab you frequent. In short, we've checked everything you regularly come into contact with. No leads." Helen couldn't think of anything either. After a while, Dave asked, a little embarrassed, "Have you ever had relations with someone of the opposite sex?" The question itself was already quite awkward, and this guy, probably worried Helen wouldn't understand, specifically added, "Sexual relations." Instantly, I felt Helen's spirit flicker with green light. It was a sign of her soul dissipating. I quickly bit my finger and gave her a few drops of blood to help solidify her spiritual form. I scolded Dave, "Hey, she's just dead, not shameless. She's a genius, yes, but she's also a girl, and she's only 18. You don't have anything else to ask, do you?" Seeing Helen's strong reaction, Dave also looked very unnatural and quickly explained, "I just remembered a movie plot where the wife puts poison on herself and then, during intercourse, poisons her husband to death, so." Helen blushed, trying to cover her face with her hands, only to realize she was an illusion and had no physical form. She could only feign composure and say, "I don't have a boyfriend, nor have I had relations with any male." Dave, probably wanting to skip this part, continued to ask, "Besides the dorm, do you have any other personal items, things you've been using continuously for many years?" Although according to the medical examiner's report, this should be acute poisoning, otherwise, her internal organs wouldn't have blackened without her feeling any discomfort, I still insist it was caused by a slow-acting poison. Suppose you've been using certain items, and the poison slowly seeped into your body, accumulating to a certain amount before taking effect. That's not impossible. I've looked into similar case files. There was one case where a stepmother gave her stepdaughter a radioactive stone necklace, causing the stepdaughter to develop cancer and die. Helen thought for a moment and said, "I don't have any such items. I have no interest in those things. My personal belongings, besides my books, are my trophies and medals." But no one wears medals every day, right? Dave was about to ask something else, but Helen had already flashed back. After all, if she didn't go back soon, I was going to lose my concentration. Dave looked at me, drenched in sweat, and handed me a tissue, saying, "If I stewed a chicken for you to replenish your energy, could the time be extended a bit?" I was almost exhausted, sitting on the chair in the interrogation room, gasping for breath, when someone pushed the door open and happened to hear that sentence. Instantly, her expression. I reasonably suspect she imagined an 800-episode gay drama. Just as Dave said, Helen's dorm room was so thoroughly searched, even the cockroaches were interrogated. The police's attention to the genius's death far exceeded my imagination. But even so, they still couldn't find any clues. Dave said, "Top investigators and medical experts from all over the country have gathered, and still no breakthrough. Whether online or in reality, the public is paying close attention. The pressure is immense. If we can't find the killer soon, I'll have no choice but to apologize with my life." He invited me to dinner, constantly piling soup and meat onto my plate, telling me to eat up and get strong. If only that stuff worked, I could eat myself into a 250-pound fatty. I figured, someone who could kill a genius must be even more of a genius. For such a person to be lurking among ordinary people is truly terrifying. I thought of something, not sure if I should say it. I said slowly. Dave immediately put down his chopsticks, looked at me with surprise, and asked, "Should you or shouldn't you? Don't I have to hear it to judge?" "You're a grown man, can you stop being so wishy-washy?" "Here's what I'm thinking. Look at this beef, it's highly nutritious and good for digestion. But beef is too coarse, and eating too much can damage the stomach lining. So, we usually cook beef with potatoes. Not only does it taste good, but it also helps protect the stomach lining." I speculated, is it possible that the things Helen came into contact with were not poisonous on their own, but when two or more of them combined, they became a toxic substance? Dave said, looking a bit disappointed, "You think the chemistry experts at Stanford are just sitting around? We considered that possibility long ago, but we didn't find anything. Let me put it this way, after the incident, anything related to Helen, from big things like her bed, desk, and bookshelf, to small things like a single strand of hair, was all sent to the lab. Forget 2 things, they tried combining 3 or 5 things, and still found no loopholes." I nodded, a million times impressed by the killer. If this level of intelligence were used to serve the country, wouldn't it be invincible? After a few bites of food, I asked again, is it possible that Helen used something, but the police didn't find it? The books in the library and the equipment in the lab have all been tested. Dave still shook his head. He was so dejected, he could only use eating to distract himself. He ate mouthful after mouthful, the sound of his chopsticks scraping the bowl was loud. Suddenly, he stopped and yelled at me, "Trash! What the heck? All my hard work gets me this?" I wasn't having it. I slammed the table, "You're the trash. You're a cop, and you can't solve the case. You're a cop, and you can't accept new things. You're a cop, and you use foul language." He quickly put down his rice bowl and grabbed my hand. "I'm not scolding you, I'm saying, the trash Helen threw away, we haven't tested that. The trash was disposed of, so after the incident, the evidence was destroyed. A new lead. But how do you find trash that's already been disposed of? The trash Helen left on the day of the incident had definitely been tested already. No breakthrough." Then, Dave reasoned backwards, if it was a slow-acting poison, she must have been using it for a long time. What is something she used frequently and threw away after use? Toilet paper? Dave shook his head, checked. She usually buys it at the campus supermarket. The Stanford supermarket wouldn't dare sell counterfeit products. Pens? Checked. Helen had very good habits. She used one pen, and when that pen ran out, she used the next one. She wasn't picky about pens either, whichever one she grabbed at the supermarket was fine. Poisoning this would be a bit difficult to manage. This is where the old professors came in handy. They said, "Scratch paper. We use a lot of scratch paper every day. After we're done, to prevent leaks, we can't just throw it away. It needs to be shredded first, and then someone is specially assigned to burn it. But this scratch paper is definitely not the problem. We all use the same kind. Who would dare to tamper with this? Wouldn't it be found out immediately with a check?" "Not necessarily." Dave quickly had someone retrieve a sample and took me to the scratch paper printing factory. Soon, they knew the composition of the scratch paper. Comparing it to other scratch paper, Dave found that the scratch paper specially supplied to Helen's department had an added fragrance called morning dew. The manufacturer explained, it's just to enhance the fresh scent of the paper, so it's a better experience when using it. Getting this information, Dave was ecstatic. Our direction was wrong. We've been investigating what ingredients her items contained, but we never thought about what extra ingredients her items might have. Sure enough, soon the police discovered that Helen's trophies and medals, when compared to normal ones, contained an additional substance named N7. N7 itself isn't toxic, it's just a metallic element similar to gold. But when combined with morning dew, it undergoes a chemical reaction. Whether it can produce a lethal toxic substance is still inconclusive because there's no precedent. At this point, even if they used lab rats for experiments, it would take 3 to 5 years to get results. Then, I arranged for Helen and Dave to meet again, this time in Helen's research lab. Helen said dejectedly, "I always thought similar toxic substances would generally be stored in the chemical storage room. But actually, besides chemicals already proven to be toxic, there are also substances under research. Medical research labs would have them too. If it's chronic poisoning, even if my body didn't react, it would definitely show up in my physical exam report. My internal organs couldn't have turned black instantly." So the three of us came to the same conclusion: someone had tampered with Helen's physical exam report. So now the target of the investigation is like a bullseye, we can go straight for it. It must have been the hospital responsible for the physical exams that did it. No one else had the means. Dave said he would report it immediately and strictly investigate the person who altered the report. Helen stopped him: to be able to influence factories, enter medical research labs, and mobilize people to change physical exam reports, this isn't something an ordinary person can do. Besides being incredibly intelligent himself, his resources are also very abundant. Someone like that, your police force alone might not be able to catch him, right? Dave nodded. That's right. And, based on what we know now, even if we find the person who tampered with the physical exam report, we can't link it to this poisoning case. A large-scale search would only alert the suspect and serve no other purpose. The most urgent thing now is to get into the medical research lab and find evidence that N7 and morning dew react chemically to produce a lethal toxin. I chimed in from the side, but medical research labs, whether state-run or private, are top secret. Without police involvement, who can get in? Besides, there are so many medical research labs, how do you know which one it is? It's not necessarily the research lab of the hospital that did the physical exam, right? At least it's the most likely. At this point, they both looked at me with perfect understanding. "Do you have a way for me to float in and find evidence?" Helen asked. That wasn't difficult, but the key was that a spirit couldn't touch objects. They wouldn't just leave the evidence out for you to see, would they? Dave specially asked his mom to stew a black chicken for me. It tasted amazing. But it had no effect on me. "It's not like there's no way," I said, wiping my mouth. "I can perform a ritual to let you possess one of the staff members, but with my current power, it'll be 10 minutes at most." "That's enough. I can do it." Helen was full of confidence. But just as I was about to perform the spell for her, she suddenly asked curiously, "If I possess someone, I can control their actions, right?" I nodded. She asked excitedly, "Then if I possess my own body, can I live for a short 10 minutes? I want to say goodbye to my parents." I thought about it. It felt a bit awkward, but I still said, "In principle, yes." Helen almost jumped up, completely ignoring Dave's face, which had turned black. His originally handsome features now looked like he'd eaten a raw bitter melon. Because Helen immediately asked, "Brother Dave, where is my body now?" Dave pretended to cough, avoided her gaze, and said in a low voice, "It's already been autopsied." He couldn't face Helen's disappointed expression, so he shifted the topic to me, asking, "A body that's had all its internal organs removed but then sewn back up, can it still be used?" I also coughed twice, feeling a protective urge for a genius girl like Helen for the first time. I joked, "Then I don't think you want to say goodbye to your parents, you want to take them with you." Helen floated away dejectedly. I teased Dave, "If you call out, 'Little Sister Helen,' I'll tell you a major discovery." This guy was probably so desperate to solve the case that he didn't even think, just blurted out, "Little Sister Helen." Who knew Helen hadn't floated far? She turned her head, her face full of surprise. Instantly, I understood the phrase "eyes full of affection" very clearly. That look really made Dave unsure how to react. He quickly said, "Be careful." Helen, rarely, showed a hint of girlish shyness and said, "Brother Dave, thank you." After Helen floated away, Dave felt uncomfortable all over. Seeing me beside him, my face contorted from holding back laughter, he glared at me fiercely and asked, "Are you sick?" Only then did I realize that compared to the two of them, I was the normal one. What major discovery? Dave slung an arm around my shoulder and then put me in a headlock, threatening, "You better tell me something good, or I'll make you pay." I wasn't laughing out loud before, but now I really couldn't help it. I pushed him away and said, "Let's play a game. We'll write our suspects on our hands, then show them at the same time. See if we thought of the same person." Although he grumbled childish, he still did it. He held out his hand and motioned for me to do the same. Since we didn't have pens, we could only use our fingers to write on each other's palms. I wrote Violet, and he wrote Smith. We looked at each other and smiled. He said, "Once we find out who tampered with the report, we can probably lock onto her. This is the Smiths' business. What's her deal? Did our Helen piss her off? A rich kid from a powerful family." Dave lit a cigarette and said helplessly, "Let's put it this way, even if we submit all the evidence, we might not get an arrest warrant. Even if we get an arrest warrant, we might not be able to catch her. Even if we catch her, she might not be convicted. Even if she's convicted and sentenced to death, the person executed might not be her. Well, that's just great." I lit a cigarette for myself too, thinking about how someone, not even an adult 5 years ago, could come up with such a poisonous plan, perfectly designed in every detail. That must be a person of incredibly high intelligence. After committing the crime, she immediately went abroad. If it weren't for my ability to summon spirits, her name might never have even come to the police's attention. The scariest part is, for 5 consecutive years, she altered the physical exam reports 10 times. With that kind of composure, if she claimed to be number 1, no one would dare claim to be number 2. So, isn't this tailor-made for me? Within minutes, someone in a white coat came out and handed Dave a file. Opening it, all sorts of reports were written clearly and meticulously inside. I snapped my fingers, separating Helen from that person. But this time, I didn't give her a chance to speak, directly putting her back into the spirit bottle. Everything I've done these past few days has nearly exhausted my life force. If I don't act soon, I'll be the next one to drop dead. So, are the police going to arrest her or not? Of course, we have to arrest her. Law enforcement is here to uphold justice, not to serve authority. But the moment the police contacted Violet, she probably got suspicious and moved. With her family's power, hiding her wouldn't be difficult. I retorted, but no matter how powerful her family background is, it can't be more powerful than the people. We reached a consensus again. Dave said, "I'll be responsible for arresting her abroad, you be responsible for creating a stir domestically." Dave took sick leave at a critical moment and got chewed out by his supervisor. Consequently, I was directly handed over to someone else, since I was, after all, a convict. Previously, Dave had kept me around under the pretext that I could assist in solving cases. This time, he couldn't take me abroad. So, I just staged a prison break. Then, before the police could react, I went live to the entire nation. I had specifically filmed myself sending Dave the photos of the Real killers before, intending to use it to rub it in his face someday. I never thought I'd use it for this. I introduced myself, "My name is Tom, and I'm currently a private investigator. In the past 2 years, I've solved 8 murder cases on my own, with an efficiency many times faster than the police. Regarding the Teen Genius murder case, the police currently have no breakthroughs, but I have already found the real killer." I held up Helen's medal and said, "This is an item belonging to the deceased that I stole from the police. It's the International Mathematical Olympiad champion medal she once won. I discovered a metallic element called N7 in the metal. N7 itself is not toxic, but I also found a substance called morning dew in the scratch paper Helen commonly used. When these two combine, a chemical reaction occurs, forming a toxic substance. I posted the component analysis of the scratch paper and the photos of the documents Helen took from the Medical Research Institute online. It was all crystal clear. Instantly, my live stream caused a huge uproar. This is a euthanasia injection currently being researched by a certain company. Without special protection, the toxin can enter the human organs through natural volatilization. Long-term ingestion can cause a gradual loss of organ function, but the body will not experience obvious pain. Under normal circumstances, a physical exam could detect abnormalities in the body's organs, but the killer tampered with Helen's physical exam reports for 5 consecutive years. This is why she was completely unaware, until finally her body couldn't take it anymore, and she died directly from poisoning. Before I could build suspense, the live chat was flooded with "Who is the killer?" I replied, "I don't know." But I found out that the Medical Examination Center specifically responsible for the physicals of Stanford personnel is an industry of the W Group. Similarly, the Medical Research Institute researching euthanasia injections is also an industry of the W Group. And the factories producing scratch paper and manufacturing trophies and medals also have business dealings with the Smiths. And the biggest coincidence is that Violet Smith, the eldest daughter of the W Group, was once Helen's roommate. I cannot be certain that she is the killer, but I believe she is highly suspicious. The reason I chose such a drastic way to inform everyone of my speculations, instead of directly submitting the information to the police, is because Violet is not currently in the country. She went abroad to study 5 years ago and has not returned since. The police once contacted her, but she refused to assist in the investigation, citing a busy work schedule and inability to return to the country. Therefore, I hope to use this method, using the pressure of public opinion, to force her to return to the country for investigation. If my deductions are wrong, I am willing to bear all legal responsibility. Additionally, for the next 3 days, I will live stream at 8 p.m. sharp every evening. If I am unable to stream, it is highly likely that something has happened to me. I hope everyone will pay close attention to me. So far, none of the evidence we have can confirm Violet is the real killer, but Helen is very sure. Her memory was famous. Even though time had passed, she still remembered some things that happened when she roomed with Violet. She said, "I don't remember any specific conflict with her, but I felt she was very insincere. She didn't seem to like me that much, but she always tried to get close to me. I never had time to pay attention to other people's emotions. I basically ignored her. But I clearly remember that the fresh scent on the scratch paper only appeared shortly before she went abroad. And those trophies and medals in my dorm, she seemed to envy them a lot. She asked me, 'Will you always keep these with you?' I told her at the time, 'I will, because this is my recognition of myself.'" Speaking of this, she showed a very sad expression. "Geniuses are lonely, geniuses are solitary." For some reason, I chose this path. To obtain these, I gave up a lot. I didn't have a happy and beautiful childhood like ordinary children. The intellectual gap made it impossible for me to have a close relationship with my parents from a very young age. I also had almost no friends. All my time was spent fighting alone in a world that was not understood or appreciated by others. Those trophies and medals are the results of my repeated struggles on the battlefield. They look like evidence of my radiant success, but in reality, they are more like the ordinary human feelings I painfully gave up. So, wherever I moved, I took them with me. We all knew very well that with the current evidence, there was no way to convict Violet. The only way was to blow the whole thing up. This will trigger a lot of chain reactions. Whether it's the scratch paper, the trophies and medals, or tampering with the physical exam reports, she needed people to do these things for her. So, this move was to stir up those who were following her orders. Dave said, "Criminals like to use criminal methods to plug loopholes. This matter has the attention of the whole country. No one should think they can get lucky. The only way for the Smiths to distance themselves is to kill those who know the inside story. If those people don't want to die, their only option is to cooperate with the police and tell everything they know. As Dave predicted, some people didn't dare to turn themselves in, but they had the guts to come find me. My live stream, currently, no one dared to shut it down. Otherwise, the public's emotions regarding this matter would be even greater, with the main force being Stanford University students. Firstly, they are at an age full of passion and vigor, and they do everything with enthusiasm. Secondly, tampering with physical exam reports, this directly concerns their own interests. I didn't even need to do anything, they themselves would follow the steps I envisioned. Furthermore, Stanford is a top institution. Any student picked from there is a future pillar of the nation. With so many pillars gathered together, it's no exaggeration to say they are the future of the country. The Smiths was now caught between a rock and a hard place. If they came out to defend themselves, it would mean they had something to hide. Silence would be taken as a tacit admission. Any casual gesture could stir up a huge storm. Their best PR move was for Violet not to appear, waiting for time to bury everything. However, when someone directly provided evidence that Violet had instructed him to tamper with the physical exam reports, the police immediately issued an arrest warrant, mandatorily requiring Violet to return to the country for trial. But they weren't afraid of this demand. With her abroad, the police couldn't forcibly bring her back. This also involves extradition treaties between countries, and coordinating various departments is very complicated, even requiring the involvement of the diplomatic corps. Without a trial, she cannot be convicted. She will forever remain just a suspect. Understanding this, even the elites in the legal field couldn't help but express pessimism, because they understood better than ordinary people that the probability of bringing the real killer to justice was very low. Now, even more people were speaking out for Helen. Her parents, with their hair turned white, went around to various departments but couldn't get a definite answer. The Smiths just needed to keep a low profile and let things calm down. However, just when they were most relaxed, Violet was arrested. Dave found her in a bed and breakfast in the country. When everyone thought Dave had gone abroad to catch her, he was actually still in the country. Because he believed that everything Violet did was resolute and without guilt. Such a criminal couldn't be understood with a normal person's mentality. The moment the news of Helen's poisoning death reached her ears, what would she be thinking? She went to so much trouble to achieve her goal, how could she possibly allow herself to watch it all from overseas? Dave said she would definitely be eager to return to the country to confirm the truth. If Helen were to have a memorial service, she would definitely come to pay her respects. So I concluded that she had already secretly returned to the country. When she heard I had gone abroad to hunt her down, she would definitely think the most dangerous place is the safest place. Going abroad now would definitely not be a wise move. It would be better to hide and wait for the storm to pass before making other plans. Sure enough, Dave used big data to check luxury goods sales records and finally, through the sales of several brands Violet liked, determined her hiding place. It said that when Dave brought her back to the police station, the surrounding area was packed with onlookers, and vehicles couldn't move on the road at all. The entrance to the police station was even more heavily besieged. No matter how high the netizens' emotions ran, the police, as law enforcers, still had to rely on evidence to handle the case. Therefore, to prevent any accidents involving Violet, the police dispatched many officers for close protection. I happened to choose this day to turn myself in. I planned to let Violet die in full public view. In short, the public wanted the real killer brought to justice, and I wanted Violet's soul to extend my life. I've always wanted to kill someone. Because the soul of a person I kill with my own hands will belong to me, and thus I can extend my life. This is the method my ancestors spent centuries figuring out to prolong life. Initially, I didn't want to take this step, which is why I thought of going abroad to find a way to prolong my life. But then I was caught by Dave and thrown into prison. During that year and a half in prison, I successfully figured out another thing: the higher the intelligence of the soul I obtain, the longer my lifespan will be. Then, I started craving to kill a genius. But killing good people would give me a psychological burden. So, I decided to kill criminals, the kind with super high intelligence. I lied to Helen, the current evidence isn't enough to get her the death penalty. And even if she is sentenced to death, with her family's power, it wouldn't be impossible for them to arrange a substitute. Later, I'll perform a ritual to let you possess a police officer. You just need to cover for me a little, give me a chance to get close to Violet. She didn't ask what I planned to do and just agreed. However, when I was performing the ritual, something unexpected happened. Helen didn't possess the police officer, instead, she directly possessed me. Are you crazy? I roared, don't you know that if I exert my power, your soul will be scattered? Brother Tom, give me 5 minutes. I want to ask her why she killed me. It was rare for her to plead with me like this. I'm not afraid of death, but I can't accept this. I agreed. She directly used my body to break free from the police's control and then quickly ran in front of the media cameras. Does everyone still recognize me? I am the private investigator from the live stream, Tom. She bowed deeply to everyone, then apologized. I'm sorry, I lied to everyone. Helen's death has nothing to do with Violet. I had a personal grudge with her, but she was hidden too well, I couldn't find her, so I cleverly used this case, using the police to find her. She turned back and pointed at Violet, asking, look at her. She's just a useless rich kid born with a silver spoon. Besides spending money, she can't do anything. What ability does she have to kill the so-called genius Helen? Just these few sentences, and the crowd on site was about to explode, surging forward. The police couldn't control the scene for a moment, and it was even harder to tell if their anger was directed at me at that moment, or at Violet. However, the first one to explode was Violet. She shouted at the top of her lungs, I killed Helen. To kill her, I personally refined the new metal N7. What's so great about her? Why is she the genius? What she can do, I can do too. What she can achieve, I can achieve too. Why is she the genius girl you all admire and worship, while I'm just the rich kid who throws her weight around because of her powerful family background? I refuse to accept it. I just want to kill the genius you all created. I just want to tell you all, she's nothing special. I just need a little trick, and she'll die without a place to be buried. Doesn't she like math? I'll let her do all the math she wants. Doesn't she like trophies and medals? I'll let her have all she wants. Evidence is important, but her own confession is also very important. Instantly, I understood what Helen meant. Unfortunately, she couldn't stay in my body for too long, or we'd both die. I put her back into the spirit bottle and asked Violet, are you that jealous of her? Do you hate her enough to want her dead? Jealous? No. This isn't jealousy, this is a contest. The one who lives is the winner. Geniuses don't live long, do you know why? It's not that others are jealous of her and won't let her live, it's that she herself is compressing her own life. She looked at the sea of people before her and asked manically, don't you hate her? Haven't you ever had your luck overshadowed by her brilliance? We keep talking about fairness and justice, but wherever Helen is there fairness and justice? Why does everyone favor her? Whatever she says or does is right. Her eyes are practically on top of her head, she can't see anyone else. Have you ever heard the saying, what you can only achieve at 18, Helen did at 12? Helen's perfect score is the perfect score of the exam paper. The point you're missing is the point your ability can't reach. As long as she's around, will you have any chance? You can't stop thanking me in your hearts, it's me who let you see the light of day again. At this very moment, the originally noisy scene became exceptionally quiet. All that could be heard was the sound of everyone's labored breathing. Violet raised her hands to the sky and said cryptically, a genius doesn't belong to this world. She is incredibly lonely and makes those around her suffer. She should return to her own world. She is your genius, but I am the god who ends geniuses. My life is more sensational than hers. No matter how this world changes, no matter how time passes, Violet is no longer some rich socialite. Violet is the god who ends geniuses. The world will forever remember my name. I never thought that one day, a suspect everyone worried couldn't be convicted would be scrambling to confess. Because this might be the only pride in her life. She killed the mountain she could never overcome. I'm about to die, but I'm still glad I didn't become a murderer. I decided to use my last strength to help Helen pass on. But she refused. She still floated cross-legged in front of me, looking down at me with a condescending gaze, and commanded, "Kneel." What the heck? I'm helping you pass on so you can reincarnate properly, and I have to kneel to you? I just voiced a slight disagreement, and she flew into a rage. I'm dead, so what's wrong with making you kneel? Kneeling to heaven, earth, and the deceased, is there a problem with that? Say what you will, when she's fierce, she really is intimidating. Alright then. I knelt down. This is your last journey as Helen. If you have anything to say it now. I'll do my best. She hesitated for a moment and then said, I want to offer my soul to you. Are you crazy? I was shocked. Do you know what offering your soul means? Once a soul is offered, you will never be able to reincarnate, ever. If I'm alive, fine, but if I die, your soul will be scattered. Moreover, offering means willingly becoming a servant. From now on, I will become your master, and I can control everything about you. And you must obey my every command. If I tell you to go up the mountain, you must go up the mountain. If I tell you to go into the sea, you must go into the sea. Are you willing to become a slave driven by others? I hadn't told her about how I extended my life by capturing souls, but she was so smart, she probably figured it out herself, which is why she stopped me from personally killing Violet. Compared to personally killing someone to forcibly capture their soul and then tame them, someone willingly offering their soul is naturally a better outcome. But for thousands and thousands of years, no one has ever willingly offered. Will you treat me like a slave? I didn't answer, because it was highly possible. After capturing her soul, she would also exist within my body. If I didn't subdue her, she might very well try to consume my soul. Helen said, actually, I'm very fortunate. Fortunate that I died after being poisoned, fortunate that I met you after I died. Suppose I was half dead, my soul trapped in a broken body, clearly conscious but unable to express myself, longing to find the real killer but powerless to do so. Perhaps, the real killer would even appear before me, ridiculing me, mocking me, humiliating me, and I could do nothing, eventually, day after day, year after year, dragging my broken body towards the end of my life, with endless desolation and sorrow, and unspoken regrets and unwillingness. I dare not imagine how painful that would be. And my parents, on one hand, wouldn't want to give up on my life, and on the other, would have no way to seek help, having to endure the heart-wrenching pain of losing their beloved daughter every day. Fortunately, they still have my younger sister to bring them comfort. I understand her feelings completely. I had already decided, no matter how the law ruled, Violet wouldn't live a happy life, and she wouldn't have a peaceful reincarnation after death either. I will imprison her soul on the stone bridge, day and night, enduring wind and sun, generation after generation, to be trampled and humiliated by people. Reincarnation means all memories of this life will be forgotten, but I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget the data and conclusions I worked so hard to deduce. I don't want to forget the people and events I remember from my short 18 years. Even more so, I don't want to forget the feeling of my heart racing, and all the memories associated with him, because those are already so few, and perhaps will never happen again. Actually, I had already discovered that Helen liked Dave. But hearing her admit it now, I still felt very shocked. Dave is 28, a full 10 years older than her. Their lives should have had no intersection. Looking at Dave, maybe he had heard of Helen's famous name, but he definitely didn't know her before the case. You like Dave? Helen didn't hide it at all, nodding heavily. If only my death could give me the chance to be close to him, I think I would be willing. My jaw dropped so wide you could fit an egg in it. So, all this time, our teen genius was a romantic? I know you'll laugh at me, but you don't understand. For someone like me, for there to be a person in this world who can capture my attention is itself a very beautiful thing. Such beauty, in these entire 18 years, might have only happened that once. She pleaded, "Can you let me see him one more time? I don't want to do anything with him, nor do I have anything to say. I just want to simply see him one more time." After the case was closed, Dave helped me apply for an exemption from his superiors. After all, besides stealing Helen's bra from the evidence room, I hadn't committed any crime. And it just so happened that this act of mine helped them solve a cold case. Then, he dragged me to the hospital. He said, "You look so full of life, you won't die. I believe there are some very strange things in the world, but I don't believe a perfectly healthy person will suddenly die. Trust the doctors, trust science. Didn't you wish I were dead? I cursed you so much. Those 108 letters, I really tore him to shreds with my words. I threw every insult I could think of at him. But not only did this guy not come to see me as I wished, he didn't even reply to a single letter. No need to bother, I'm not going to die." I stopped in my tracks and said, "I lied to you." He immediately looked very disappointed. "So the soul I saw was fake?" "It was real, but the part about me dying at 30 was fake. I just wanted to play the victim in front of you, to arouse your sympathy." His expression still wasn't good. I asked puzzledly, "What, you're disappointed that I'm not going to die?" He shook his head and said, "It just feels like these past few days have been a dream." Where will she go?" "Well, another world." Afraid he would ask more, I quickly said, "That world, I haven't been there either, so I don't know what it's like." "You still remember you promised me one thing, right?" I suggested. I suddenly feel like shopping. "Will you come with me?" He looked puzzled but still agreed. Then, his life became full of many questions. "Why are you looking at me like that? A grown man, how can you like cotton candy?" "No way, buddy, that's purple, a girl's fantasy color. Don't push it, painting your nails is not something a cop should do." Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. "Tom, tell me honestly, you're not gay, are you?" "What, are you?" I joked. He kicked me really hard. "Are you trying to die?" I ran ahead, and he chased after me. We played around for a long time. He asked, "What are your plans?" "No plans. I've always been like this, the world is my home. Wherever I'm needed, I'll appear." He said solemnly, "I need you very much right now. I'm applying to my superiors for a paranormal investigation team. Will you stay and help me?" I looked at him, not knowing whether to agree. My initial plan was to capture his soul. But I felt he was a dedicated and responsible good cop and shouldn't suffer such a tragic end. Later, I thought about letting Helen willingly offer her soul, since she was already dead. However, I couldn't bear for such a capable person to become a slave who could never reincarnate. Only at the very end did I set my sights on Violet. However, I changed my mind. Such an evil person didn't deserve to share a soul with me. Helen indeed would never reincarnate, but from another perspective, she also achieved eternal life. It's not impossible. I said to Dave, "How about this? While I'm alive, I'll listen to you. When you're dead, you'll listen to me." Epilogue. I went to Stanford and found Eric. I made him kneel and kowtow to me, forcing him to become my apprentice. Because I will teach him all of Helen's skills. He will carry the hopes of many people and continue Helen's research, maximum human survival space in the apocalypse. Helen told me that the Earth may be eternal, but civilization is always in a cycle of destruction and reconstruction. She deduced that after 1052 years, our current civilization will be completely destroyed. To preserve traces of our civilization's existence, we must ensure that at least one man and one woman survive the apocalyptic devastation. Thus, our civilization can be continued, allowing humanity to survive better in the future.